All right, topic one. Let's talk about dealing with slumps. So, slumps are a cause for panic in almost everyone. Where, oh no, little Johnny's opened this season 0 for 11. He needs a hitting lesson. He needs a pitching lesson. He got shelled. He didn't throw strikes. All this stuff. Everything is a source of panic for parents, coaches, and players alike. And the first thing to know is number one, that baseball is a lot of random chance. Baseball takes a lot of breaking in, and baseball is often a very streaky sport. So just like if you were to flip a coin, U.S. quarter or we could do like a Buffalo head nickel, could be a Sacagawea dollar. Those things are super unsuccessful. Whatever, you flip a coin over time. You flip that coin 10,000 times, you're probably going to get 5,000 heads and 5,000 tails, plus or minus a very small amount, right? Because it's a fair coin, it's going to average out over time. However, if you were to flip that Sacagawea dollar just 10 times in a row, you might get 9 heads and 1 tails. It doesn't mean the coin's rigged. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with it. It doesn't mean that it's not a fair coin. It just means that that sample size was small enough to not be indicative of the true odds at stake. So with baseball, number one, you could go up to bat 10 times, hit 2 line drives. They both get caught, hit them right at a fielder. You could hit a pretty deep fly ball, also gets caught. You could hit a hard ground out with a runner on first, and they get the out at second. That is a fielder's choice. That maybe that ball, when he has to throw across the diamond, maybe you beat it out or whatever. There's just so many different scenarios in which we can kind of get screwed out of a good result, right? Baseball has a lot of chance. And as a player, when you focus on the negative stuff, so when you focus as a pitcher, like, oh, that blooper fell in, that was BS, blah, 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 blah. Lots of players, even at extremely high levels, don't seem to understand that for every blooper that falls in, they get a line drive hit right at a guy. Like, it pretty much evens out over time. Certainly, when things are not going well, you highlight the bad stuff, and it's easy to ruminate on that. However, when you really think about it, I've had as many line drives go right into mitts, or like 2-0, guy hits an absolute missile one-hopper right at my shortstop, who flips to second, who flips to first, and we get out of the inning. Like, sometimes like the inning is just boiling up, and you're like, oh God, I have the bases loaded and 1 out, or I'm walking everyone, I can't throw a strike, and things are going to get out of control, and then suddenly you just throw a pitch right down the middle, and you're like, ugh, and then he pops it up. Or he hits, like I said, that one hopper right at the shortstop, and you get a double play. Baseball isn't like a movie where the suspense just builds and then, I don't know, the thing happens. But a lot of times it just suspense builds and then it just immediately dissipates because of luck. And vice versa. Sometimes things are going great, and then sometimes, man, you get 2 quick outs, and then blooper falls in. You hit a guy with a pitch that was like kind of just slipped out of your hand, and then a 19 hop ground ball sneaks through the hole, and then guy hits a double, and suddenly 3 runs came in. You're like, how did that just happen? Like, it goes on both sides. So number one, we need to know what the sample size is, and if we actually need to panic. So if your kid goes 0 for 15 to start the season, that's not great, and maybe there's a big problem, but maybe there isn't. So when I played independent baseball, I was in the Frontier League my first couple years, and lots of younger players, and lots of players were trying to get into that league. It was a very rookie-heavy league, so there was lots of turnover. So basically, if you get a chance and you have a bad couple weeks, they get rid of you because there's no track record that you're good, right? Maybe you're just out of college and you're playing pro ball for the first time, and it just seems like you can't hack it, right? You hit 150 over your first 30 at-bats, and that's that for you. And that's the end of your career, maybe. It's very cutthroat. However, at the higher levels, so I played in the Atlantic League my last 3 years, it was very different because they're getting guys who had long track records. So most guys had 8 years or more of professional experience, and because they played that long, they usually played at AA, AAA, or the majors. And you get one of those guys, so they go, okay, we signed a relief pitcher who played his last 2 seasons at AAA and then got let go. They don't cut that guy in spring training because he had a bad couple outings. They don't cut that guy in the first month even because he starts off slow. Maybe he gets hit around a little bit. They know that he's been a proven performer, and they let those guys get slow starts. One of my teammates, an excellent hitter named Dan Lyons, he was like 280, 290, 290 for like 3 consecutive years. And then when I joined their team and he and I were teammates, he started off really slow that year. I think he was hitting like 230, maybe for a while, 240. And like, what's wrong? And nothing was wrong. He ended up hitting like the same as he always hit later on. He just started a little cold and then got pretty hot, and then it averaged out. So they didn't panic with him because they knew that, okay, whether it's the first month or the last month, there's going to be this up and down wave period. But when people start out at a really steep down, they freak out and they think that something's broken. They start trying to invent new pitches. They start trying to reinvent their swing. They need 15 pitching lessons. And it's just really not that way. And I mean, the reality is that we will have ups and downs, but it gets scary when you're really down to start because we think that you just can't do it. But we have to have perspective and the questions we have to ask. So back to the example with my team. My team started off 4-0. We're now 4-4. We've lost the last 3 games in sort of horrendous fashion, like 9-0, 8-0, 12-1. It's been strange playing like super far below our ability. And I coach a 14U team that has very high ability for their age. So as we lost again last night, I just was wondering the whole game, I'm like, what are we missing? Our pregame is fine. We hit, we throw, we take a bunch of fly balls, pop-ups, even ground balls. We're relaxed. Our practices, we get a lot accomplished. Our kids have a workload sheet where they have to play catch and get their flat grounds in. We get bullpens twice a week or at least once a week in addition to their pitching in games. I don't think it's a preparation issue. Could I tighten up our practices a little bit? Could I make things a little more efficient at practices? Sure. Could I rework them a little bit? Sure. But is preparation really what we're lacking, that suddenly we're going out and getting beat? Not really. We have a longer pregame than other teams. We have 75 minutes for pregame. So again, we get a lot of swings in. We get a lot of fielding. I mean, we have time and we're ready to take the field, but then we're just not hitting either. And then we make errors in the field, pop-ups drop. It's just been strange. And so when I really consider like what we might do different on the player level, on my level, the coaching level, on the practice level, like pregame, you say like, where is there a hole in our preparation somewhere that we need to fill, that this is the reason that we're not playing well? And as I go through the list, like I said, I think there's some definite things that we can do. Maybe some of my philosophies haven't worked out as well as far as some of our pitch selection and stuff like that. But on the whole, there isn't really one. And so the question is, okay, I think we just need to ride this out. And if so, for how long? And when is it going to right itself? Because if you can't find an obvious reason for something going wrong, then you just have to ride it out. And sometimes it's just bad luck. And sometimes it's just being a baseball player, especially at a lower level where the floodgates just open a lot faster. So at a high level, when you don't pitch well, you don't give up 10 runs. You have like 4 or 5, and then they get you out of there, right? The game still it stays a lot more manageable. There are certainly 17-1 games in the major leagues, but they're very infrequent. And blowouts are more like 8-3, 8-2, where the outcome is pretty certain early, even though it's not like a crazy, Bugs Bunny kind of gap between winner and loser. So the question is, again, when you're slumping, whether it's as a team or a player, how do you know when you need to change? And how do you know when you just need to ride it out? So I remember in my last couple of seasons, I pitched really poorly in July for both of my 14 and my 2015 season. And I just, for like 2 weeks, it just like seems like hitters had seen me enough where they caught up to what I was doing. I feel like I got a little bit of bad luck at times. And then I also made a lot of bad pitches. So I just feel like there was like a confluence of factors where hitters had seen me a bunch and they kind of knew what to expect from me. So they had a little maybe better at bats than they did early in the season when they were still getting used to what I did as a pitcher. And then when you're not executing as well, which I probably wasn't at the time, and then with a little bit of bad luck, some balls that could have been double play balls go through, or bloopers fall, or calls don't go your way, whatever. All those things could snowball at once. Hitters are having better bats because they've seen me now. Some of the balls that would have been hits were just by luck, would have been outs are just now by luck hits. And then maybe I'm not pitching quite as well as I was before. Those 3 things all add up pretty quickly. And I just didn't get good results. I'd go in, I'd give runs every time, I'd give hits a lot. and it was just a rough couple of weeks. And so I made little adjustments. I started pitching inside a little bit more, and I started throwing my off-speed stuff a little bit more, but it was small stuff. But other than that, all the other things, my preparation, I just tried to wait it out, really, because I knew that what I was doing, everything up until that date where I kind of started getting hit, where I had strung like 5 or 6 outings in a row that weren't very good, everything I'd done up to that date was the same as everything I was doing while I was slumping. So it wasn't like the preparation was wrong, because otherwise I would have been pitching bad the whole season. So my preparation stayed largely the same. I asked catchers, I asked my coaches, I asked other guys like what they thought was maybe like going on, and they're like, well, I think you're just missing over the middle a lot, compared to, you seemed like you're hitting your spots a little better earlier, you're just executing more. So obviously it comes down to playing the game well. Like, you have to, if you don't want to slump, you have to hit the ball, you have to pitch the ball well, you have to execute. Ultimately, coaches can't do that for you. And that was one of the things I told my players the other day. It's like, if we're not unprepared, because I asked them, I'm like, do we need to do more in practice? Do we need to do more in pregame? What do we need? What can I help you with, and what can we help ourselves with? Like, is our pregame missing something? Like, what can we do? What can we add? And they're like, no, like, we feel like we're prepared. Like, I can't catch pop-ups for you. Like, I can't get your mitt down. We can yell at you about it. We can do more work on it in practice. But at the end of the day, when you're out there, you have to perform. So that's part of it too. So anyway, I just wrote it out. I started changing my pitch sequencing just a little bit, where I started going inside a little bit more, and just focused a little harder on doing my job well and executing. And things righted. I don't know. After a couple weeks, I just became my old self again. So, you can't freak out and suddenly you see a lot of guys, they have a bad outing, and you see them the next game in pregame, and they're like reworking on their mechanics, or they're working really hard on their mechanics. I never liked to do that. When I was, I knew that if I strung out 30 outings in a row, there's going to be bad ones in there. But if I have 5 good ones and then 1 bad one, then 5 good ones and then 1 bad one, do I need to remodel myself or change my pregame routine after the bad one? Not really. Just like, screw it. Like, I didn't throw good that time. Big deal. There's a lot of factors, and getting obsessed with them is often counterproductive too. So things you can control during a season. Number 1, your preparation, your routine. Does your preparation, your routine consistently put you in a place to succeed? Are you throwing enough? Is your throwing session focused? Are you throwing enough changeups, enough curveballs, enough sliders to keep those pitches sharp when you get your chance on the mound? As a hitter, are you taking enough swings? Are you constantly focused on fixing the little flaws in your swing that maybe your hitting coach has worked on with you? Are you always making some little improvements? Are you seeing enough live, higher speed pitching, which is tougher at youth baseball? It's tougher even in higher levels, because you don't see live arms a lot except when you're in a game. But you kind of have to like audit yourself. What are you missing, and what are you getting? Is there something that, like, oh yeah, my changeup stinks because I really haven't been throwing enough in the bullpen, or I haven't been throwing enough in my catch routine or my flat ground routine or whatever. I probably just need to throw more of those. Sometimes you just need to throw it more in the game too. You just have to force yourself. That was something with me. Like, I could get by a lot of times with 2 pitches, and then when I needed that third one, it wasn't there a lot of times because I didn't throw it enough. And I had to just sort of like, okay, I need to incubate this by mixing in some more of them in games where it makes sense, even though I might go to a curveball at that point, ordinarily. So it's hard to say exactly what we're looking for with all this stuff. It's hard to say exactly how to know when to change, but we have to remember sample size is important. So if it's a couple of bats, if it's a couple outings, if it's a couple innings, and when I say a couple, even like 1,000 at bats isn't necessarily indicative in the majors, because they get tons of bats, how good you are or what your platoon split is. So like, they can't say if you can't hit lefties yet until you've gotten thousands of at bats off them a lot of times. So the statisticians, they know, the analysts, they know that there's still so much random variance in baseball that they have to have large sample sizes to really infer what you can and can't do. And in youth baseball, obviously sample sizes are way, way smaller, so you're not going to get 1,000 at-bats to prove your worth. You might only get a couple. You might get a dozen. You might get 2 or 3 dozen. But coaches have to analyze, like, how does his swing look? How are his at-bats? Is he hitting the ball hard? It's not just about, your batting average or any of that, but we just try to figure out what Is he making good contact? Is he having good at bats? Is he always putting himself in a hole? What can we do to make sure that we have an idea that you will start hitting at some point if you're not, or that you will start getting outs if you're not right now? For me, it's strike throwing a lot of times. If you're throwing strikes, then we just need to refine those strikes. If you're not throwing strikes, then we need to get you to throw strikes. Lots of different factors. But dealing with slumps is tough. It's one of those things that, if anything, I say ride it out a little longer. Look at your preparation. Don't look at remodeling yourself, but really lay out what you're doing in the week and see, are you really prepared to put yourself in a position to succeed when you go out to the mound? And if you're not, that's the first thing we need to fix. It's not to fix your mechanics right away. It's not to fix your swing right away. It's to fix all the things that are preparing you to go out there and have good at-bats. Take good ground balls in the field, get good roots on fly balls in the outfield, and have good innings as a pitcher.